The billionaire's voice boomed across the velvet-draped dining room, clattering silverware and halting conversations mid-sentence. It was a rainy Tuesday evening when Danielle Rivera pulled on her apron and stepped into her shift at Solara Prime, the kind of upscale restaurant where the wine list had its own leather-bound book and a single entree cost more than her monthly rent. At 24, Danielle had worked enough tables to see her share of pompous guests, but nothing in her experience had quite prepared her for Malcolm Drake. His name carried weight. Malcolm Drake, media mogul, billionaire investor, a man whose reputation preceded him into every room he entered. The whispers of his presence came before the host even pulled out his chair. He was the kind of man who fired CEOs over a lukewarm espresso and who seemed to find particular joy in watching servers squirm under pressure. Danielle watched as he entered with two assistants, a publicist, and a date who looked more like a magazine ad than a person. Her heels clicked like punctuation marks against the marble floor. Danielle had barely clocked in before the maitre d' informed her, with a sympathetic glance, that table 12 was hers. She swallowed the knot in her throat and stepped forward, careful not to show even a hint of hesitation. She greeted them with practiced poise, took their drink orders, and made sure to bring Mr. Drake's sparkling water with exactly 2 wedges of lemon seedless, as noted on his permanent guest profile. For a moment, everything flowed like a well-oiled machine. Appetizers were served, compliments were tossed around the table like breadcrumbs, and Malcolm Drake seemed content enough to stay out of attack mode. But then she brought out his filet mignon. "This is not medium rare," he snapped, slamming the plate down with such force that the wine glasses trembled. Danielle didn't flinch. "I'm so sorry, sir. Let me. You think this is acceptable?" He cut in, voice rising with venom. "I don't spend thousands at a top-tier restaurant to be served garbage. What is this, a campus cafe?" Heads turned. The clatter of dining faded into a weighted silence. Even the pianist faltered, missing a note before recovering. Danielle's cheeks burned, but her posture didn't break. She met his glare with a calm she didn't know she had in her. "I treat everyone with respect, Mr. Drake," she said softly but clearly, "whether they're eating a sandwich or steak. You're welcome to do the same." The room stopped. Forks hovered midair. A single cough echoed from the bar. Malcolm Drake blinked, stunned, like he'd never been spoken to like that, especially not by a waitress in warm black shoes. Without another word, Danielle gently picked up the plate and walked back toward the kitchen, her hands trembling just slightly. The chef stared at her as she entered, eyebrows raised, but she offered only a small nod, as if to say, "Let it go." She didn't want attention. She just wanted to finish her shift and survive the week. Back at table 12, Malcolm sat oddly quiet. His companions shifted uncomfortably. No one dared fill the silence. The publicist checked her phone. The date stirred her cocktail and looked elsewhere. Malcolm tapped his fingers against the polished wood and stared straight ahead, but he wasn't seeing the crystal chandelier above. He was seeing a memory. Years ago, before the tailored suits, the headlines, and the empire, Malcolm Drake had been just another broke kid working late shifts at a roadside diner in upstate New York. One bitter winter night, he spilled a full tray of hot food onto a businessman's lap. The man had leapt up, red with fury, and berated him in front of the entire restaurant. Malcolm had stood there, eyes locked on the cracked linoleum floor, face hot with shame. He'd never forgotten it. That single moment had stoked a fire in Hema hunger to never be humiliated again. And now, decades later, here he was doing the same thing to someone else. 15 minutes later, Danielle returned with a new plate. She placed it gently in front of him. "Medium rare," she said evenly. "No sarcasm, no resentment, just dignity." He stared at her for a beat too long. "Thank you," he said, and for the first time that evening, he meant it. The rest of the meal passed without incident. Malcolm ate quietly, watching Danielle from afar as she floated between tables, always attentive, never missing a step. She didn't glance at him again, but he noticed everything: the frayed hem of her apron, the careful way she poured water, and the way she slipped extra bread to the kitchen in turn, a skinny teen who looked like he hadn't eaten all day. Later, Malcolm asked the manager about her. He learned that Danielle was working double shifts, studying nursing at night, and sending money to her younger brother back home. She never missed a shift, never complained. When Malcolm left, he didn't tip. Instead, he left a sealed envelope on the table with her name written across it in crisp black ink. Danielle found it 20 minutes later while clearing table 12. At first, she assumed it was a complaint, maybe a scathing note, or worse, a demand. Her hands trembled as she opened it, expecting venom. But inside was a cashier's check. Not $100, not $1,000, $50,000. She stared at the number, blinking, then rubbing her eyes to make sure it wasn't some cruel mistake. No note, no explanation, just her name and enough money to wipe away her student debt, her brother's tuition, her rent for the year. Her knees wobbled. She ran to the manager. Did Mr. Drake say anything when he left? The manager shrugged. Just said the food was great. Danielle stood in stunned silence, turning back toward the room as if he might still be there, sitting quietly with a smirk. But he was gone. No witnesses. No cameras. Just a silent exit and a life changed forever. That night, in her cramped apartment, Danielle laid the check on her table next to a worn nursing textbook and a stack of overdue bills. She called her younger brother and cried not tears of sorrow, but release. Hope, for the first time in years, didn't feel like a fairy tale. Across the city, Malcolm Drake sat alone in his penthouse. He wasn't reviewing balance sheets or fielding boardroom calls. He was thinking about her, voice clear, calm, undeniable. It echoed in his mind louder than any corporate pitch or closing bell. She hadn't shouted. She hadn't tried to shame him. She had simply told the truth. And that truth had cracked something open in him. Months passed. Solara Prime's gold-embossed doors opened one morning, and the familiar chime of the front bell rang out. Danielle turned from the coffee station, wiping her hands on her apron. Her heart skipped a beat. Malcolm Drake stood in the entrance. Same suit, same confidence, but this time, there was something gentler in his expression. He wasn't flanked by handlers. No autografe. Just him. I never got to thank you, he said. Danielle hesitated. For what? For reminding me that some people still speak from heart. He handed her a small envelope and left, not waiting for a response. Inside was no check this time, just a letter. Dear Danielle, in my world, money talks and power silences. But that night, you didn't flinch. Your one sentence reminded me who I used to be. It changed something in me. I've started a foundation, a Danielle Rivera initiative for women who give everything even when the world gives them nothing. I hope you'll lead it. Her breath caught. She sank into a chair, eyes wide, the paper trembling in her hand. Her name, once whispered in kitchens and break rooms, was about to be spoken on stages and across headlines. Weeks later, the city would learn her name. Not as a waitress, but as a change maker, a leader of compassion, dignity, and strength. Interviews followed. Invitations rolled in. She never sought the spotlight, but when it came, she stood tall in it. Whenever reporters asked Malcolm Drake why he chose her, his answer was always the same. Because when the room went quiet, she was the only one brave enough to speak.